The Carpenter's Son is a wild and dark reinterpretation of biblical lore, and reimagines the teen years of Jesus with a grim edge. The Carpenter's Son focuses on the boy, a clear stand-in for Jesus, who lives in isolation with his mother and his father. Only known as the Carpenter, his deep faith bristles against the teen. It's an intense and dark film, feeling at times like a fusion of the Omen and the Passion of the Christ. However, even though the film does take the boy into some pretty dark directions, it's all in service of a redemptive arc that really undercuts his growth from a regular person into a messianic figure. The Carpenter's Son paints a very different picture of Jesus. The Carpenter's Son is a very human approach to the story of Jesus, casting him as an isolated and confused teenager who gradually realizes his destiny. The storytelling mechanics of The Carpenter's Son are much more in line with a horror film than a typical biblical film, even opening on a grisly retelling of the birth of the unnamed boy. The brunt of the film focuses on the boy, his mother, and the carpenter after they've spent years in hiding. Finding a small village to settle in, the plot follows a young woman who seems to equally despise and be obsessed with the boy. This is later revealed to be the film's version of Satan, seeking to disrupt his destiny. The boy deviates from most portrayals of biblical stories, even more human depictions of Jesus, like in The Last Temptation of Christ. This is a Jesus who is very much a regular teenager, who only steadily discovers the truth about his origins, powers, and destiny. It's treated with a very human touch, depicting the boy's dawning horror and eventual acceptance. The most interesting, and likely controversial, moment comes after the boy realizes his abilities. While trying to find his family to flee, the boy is spotted by a fellow teenager. The boy causes him to collapse from afar before he can alert everyone else. The boy later says he killed him, even if his exact fate was slightly ambiguous. The filmmakers have already subverted expectations by depicting the boy as a regular teenager, but having him use his abilities to actually hurt someone is a bold deviation from typically holy presentations of the character. Even if it's self-defense, it's one of the most controversial elements of the infancy gospel to make it into the film. It's one of the Carpenter's Son's most intriguing ideas. Despite doing it to save himself and his family, the death weighs on the boy during the climax. It haunts him, and plays into the boy's final confrontation with the stranger and their fateful and brutal fight. Fighting when the boy refuses, the boy notably spares the stranger, leaving to be with the carpenter. It makes the boy's compassion and forgiving nature something he learned and wasn't blessed with. It shows the boy's evolution from a regular person to someone with the mercy he must have. It gives the boy a redemption aspect to his arc. The Carpenter's crisis of faith is the emotional core of the movie. Nic Cage's Carpenter is the secondary lead of The Carpenter's Son, a man of extreme faith who finds himself finally questioning his devotion to the deity he witnessed years prior. The Carpenter's Son opens with the titular man witnessing something divine before becoming the dedicated protector of the mother and the boy. The carpenter is a blunt and harsh father figure for the boy. While he's introduced with a deep wealth of faith and belief, he is increasingly shaken by the boy's actions and the stress it brings him. The carpenter's constant prayers are never answered, and he even confronts the mother if she's been lying to him this whole time. In contrast to the boy losing his faith in his adopted father as he learns the truth about his real one, the carpenter finds his own faith waning in the absence of the divine. It's surprising to see Nic Cage give the most muted performance in a film, as even his outbursts towards the never-doubtful mother are rooted in scornful fury. It's notable that the carpenter races to rescue the boy from danger despite his doubt, only to be morally wounded. Rather than accept the boy's healing, the carpenter convinces him to let him fade away. It's a somber scene, but one that seems to reward the carpenter's faith by letting him move on, assured his faith was not misplaced. Similar to how the film grounds the biblical story in the conventions of a troubled teen tale, the carpenter's struggles to reckon with his adopted son are rooted in parental self-doubt and frustration. It makes his final sacrifice for the boy who has always seen him as a father more meaningful. The true meaning of The Carpenter's Son. The Carpenter's Son is an interesting film, if one is bogged down by an execution that doesn't quite stick the landing. The central idea of the film is to present the way a young Jesus realized his full destiny, reflecting the darker elements of the infancy gospel of Thomas and their depiction of a more flawed, and therefore human, Jesus. The boy has flashes of his future death, sees darkness coming for him, and recognizes the danger he is in. Despite the stranger's attempts to convince him of the world's flaws, the boy evolves from a well-meaning boy into a confident man. It's an origin story for Jesus, depicting his evolution into the version most people know him as.